Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more waterfowl patterning. And we've got a combination out here today that I definitely have some pretty decently high hopes for. We've seen some good results before out of this shell, and we've also seen some promising performances from this choke as well in the few times that we've tested it. So I'm thinking we should be able to see a pretty decent pattern out of these two today, or that's the hope anyway, I guess. So for the shell I've got here today, I brought out some of the Winchester Xpert Hi-Velocity Steel loads. These are the little bit older version of the Xpert shells, and to be quite honest with you, these have shown some better performance than the newer ones so far. But these are a 12 gauge, 2 3/4 inch, ounce and a 1/16 of steel number 4 shot, going about 1550 feet per second. And these shells have shown some decent patterns for us in the past, so hopefully they continue the trend today. And as for the setup I've got here today to test them, I've brought out the Remington 1187, but I put this choke in the gun. This is a Patternmaster Black Mamba 690 constriction choke, and if you don't know, this is kind of Patternmaster's do-all choke to bridge the gap between turkey and waterfowl hunters to potentially do both pretty decently. And so far it seemed to do relatively decently from what we've tested it with, so I'm thinking we should see some pretty decent performance out of this choke and shell combination today, especially considering that we're shooting number 4s through it. So as for our test, everything is set up the same as always. We have the duck target set up at 40 yards. I also have my chronograph, so we'll be able to see our speed and how close it is to the box claim. So let's get you guys a view of this target, and I'll head up and take the shot. We'll look at our chrono, and we'll look and see how they did down at 40 yards on the paper. So let's head over here and shoot it and see what happens. Okay, so that shell gave us 1601 through our chronograph. The box was claiming 1550, so we definitely got their claim and a little bit more. And to be honest with you, I think that this is the first time that we have seen 1600 from a waterfowl shell. So that's definitely moving out pretty quick, but this is a load of number 4s, so you're not carrying quite the weight downrange as you would a load of 2s or BBs or something like that. So it makes sense why they're moving a little bit faster. But either way, 1601 is absolutely good enough for velocity, and it might even be a little bit on the too fast side. I don't know. I guess it just depends on what we see for performance. But either way, let's go down range and see how it actually did down at 40 yards. Alright, so now we're down range here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. Now, we did have multiple hits on this duck here, so I do think that this duck would have come crashing down. Now, we don't have any in the head or neck area, but the ones we do have in the body, I definitely think were enough. Now, looking at the rest of the pattern here, I don't know. I think it might be a touch low and a touch left overall, or at least the core area of the pattern might be. But we did see some pretty decent coverage. However, it's not exactly what I would call perfectly even either. Even if our core area is a touch low and left, we did have a few voids down there on the bottom left and right below this duck here. There are those few voids, so I don't know. Is it terrible? Absolutely not. We've seen way worse for a waterfowl pattern, that's for sure. But is it anything that I would call spectacular either? No, not really. I like the overall coverage of it, but it's definitely a little bit less even than what I would like to see. Even up here above the bird, we see these little stragglers and strings, and typically I don't really like to see that. Now, to be fair, there's really nowhere, at least in that entire paper size right there, that duck could have flew to and got away. So is it good enough? Yeah, absolutely. But it's definitely a little bit sporadic and not quite as even as what I would ideally like to see. So overall on this one, I don't know. It's kind of a mixed bag, really. We had some parts of the pattern that looked pretty good and other parts that just didn't really impressed me all that much. So kind of a mixed bag on this one. I would say it's pretty run-of-the-mill, middle of the road. Definitely nothing special. Would do the job, but not quite as even as what I was really kind of hoping for or expecting. Okay, and here's the wad out of that shell, and as you can see, definitely nothing too spectacular to see here. We did have one petal that opened up a little bit farther than the rest, but there's nothing stuck down in there. No rips or tears or anything like that. And there's really not even very many of these little scuff marks either. That Black Mamba choke is a 690, so not the tightest choke, but it is also a gas over constriction choke, so that might have played into why we didn't see quite as many scuffs on this wad as we normally do. But either way, not really anything too concerning, I wouldn't say. Maybe that one pedal being open a little bit farther skewed our pattern the slightest bit, but I have my doubts. But as for the wad, definitely nothing major that I would be concerned about on this one. All right, y'all. Well, what do you think about that performance there? It definitely kind of seems like it's the middle of the road. It's not terrible by any means. It's far from the worst we've seen, but it's not quite the best we've seen either. So I don't know on this one. What do you guys think about it? I was hoping for a little bit more even of a pattern, but we did see some more gaps and voids and little strings off of it that I really don't prefer to see in my waterfowl patterns. But other parts of the patterns did give you some decent coverage as well. If it's what you had, you could absolutely take it out and be pretty much just fine. But as always, leave your thoughts about it in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see, or were you hoping for a little bit better? And if you've tested those older Winchester Xpert Hi-Velocity Steel loads, what has been your results with it? And has it been a setup that you would use or have used? Let me know all that down in the comments. But with that being said, I've got a bunch more testing coming for y'all, so stay tuned. As always, we do have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send things if you're interested. All that information will be down there in the description for you. But with that being said, I'm going to get back to the testing, so I'll see y'all in the next one.